And just here in Hastings?
I don't know, honey. I'm not sure just where, but anyway, but he did die in St. Joseph's Hospital in 1926. So we had a bad snowstorm, and I always went down to the cellar to get wood for our cook stove, and we lived up on the third floor in the old Hastings houses. Now those Hastings houses were the last ones down going toward Zinsel. This is in the 20s, in the early 20s. Anyway, 8 families to a house. So there's 24 families there.
And what street was that on?
On Railroad Avenue. Railroad Avenue, yeah.
Are some of those houses still down there? Or?
No.
No.
Well, they most likely tore the houses down, and they made some repair shops out of them. Some type of shops are down there now, I think. But they were the last ones on Railroad Avenue going towards Zinders. So, this milkman came by, he was a Sheffield's milkman, and I went down to get some wood, a big basket of wood I usually carried. So when I come back up, you had to go a flight of stairs and then a straight level, and that's where the snow drifts was, and that's where I fell over with my wood. And I was raised in Kane having a barrel fun because I was nothing but a kid, you know. I enjoyed it. I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And I was making a lot of noise, and the milkman just happened to come by, and he pulled me out. He helped me get my wood back in the basket and up to the house and went. So in appreciation of him pulling me out, well, I figured, well, I'll try to help him. So I started working for him, and he started paying me 5 cents an hour. I got 15 cents for about 2 days, I think, maybe 3 days. Then he boosted me up to a quarter for 3 hours. See, we worked from 3:30 in the morning until 6:30, then I went to school. So, and when I made a quarter a morning, well, that was real good. It took about 3 hours. I got to tell you this good story. Now, I don't know whether it ought to be written down or not, but anyway, Cop Dave, you remember him, I'm sure. Do you?
I'm a new resident.
Oh, you are? Okay, well, anyway, I used to wait for the milkman. You could hear the horses coming down, from Yonkers. And they used to put a big basket that had to be this big around of sweet rolls and stuff, because they put it in this restaurant. There was a restaurant on the corner of Washington and Wilbert Avenue. And that's where I was waiting for my milkman, because we started our route right there. So when they had these big baskets of sweet rolls, I used to reach in there and get me one. And I got one of them real good twisted ones. It had the best taste. And I most likely done that for about maybe 2 or 3 months. And naturally the owner complained about it, so they put the Cop Dave on the job, I believe. But anyway, I think he had a bottle back there anyway. So I already just got finished eating.
Excuse me. No.
I finished eating, and she let me eat my little roll, you know. And he come back out from behind the dog porch there, and the only light they had in the middle of Woodburn and Washington, there was about a 4-watt bulb sticking out over the center of the street. You could hardly see it. You had to strike a match to see if it was on. It was that way. And he come out from behind wherever he was. He just stood. He didn't say a word. He didn't say nothing. And man, that was the best experience I ever had. That taught me a great lesson. Honestly, man, that was great. And everybody else was scared of Cop Dave, because he was really kind of tough anyway, but he was good. And I loved him for that.
Which cop was that?
Cop Dave was all Dave.
Oh, I don't know.
Only Cop Dave was all I knew, because I was nothing but a little kid, you know. So I worked with Sheffield's for about a year or two, and then Borden's man liked me because all the Europeans liked me because I was Ukrainian, you know. And so Brophy paid me 50 cents a morning. And so naturally I went for the higher thing, which I wish I didn't, because Brophy wasn't too good. He tried to get me to get all the Sheffield's customers to go to Borden's, and that wasn't right. But anyway, that's what he done. And I didn't work with him too long. So, yeah, this was in about 27 or 28, somewhere in there. Then I went to work for this lady to dig up this garden for her. She paid me 15 cents an hour, but buddy, that was the hardest 15 cents I ever made. I dug that garden. It had to be around 25, 30 feet wide and maybe 50, 60 feet long. It was that way. And I used a big pitchfork, and she wanted me to push that...
dig down.
Yeah, down to the hilt, and the hilt is this part of the ford, and the tree,
Yes.
four blades. I'd dig all the way down in, and I'd flip it on over and then break it, and then break it, and go to the next place, and go back and forth, back and forth. Never even straightened up, I don't believe. Never drank no water, nothing for about 6 hours. And you know what she paid me? Less than $1. She paid 15 cents an hour. I worked about 6 hours and maybe a few minutes. She'd pay me, say, a few pennies more for that extra time. I don't know. I didn't have no watch, and neither did she, I don't think. But anyway, and then I went to work I went back to the municipal building to get a job. The unemployment office was there, and
They had an unemployment office
yeah,
in the municipal building.
They did. Well, I'm going to call it municipal. It wasn't the same building it is now, I don't think. But anyway, that's where it was. It was in that area. And then after working for this lady, why, a couple days later, I got a job as Arthur M. Aiken. He was the vice president of Chase National Bank. And his wife called down to have those sun porch? Yeah, sun porch. Is that what you call it? Well, anyway, they had windows from the floor all the way to the ceiling, and the ceiling was high.
What year was this? Do you remember?
Yeah, it had to be about 1930.
1930.
So,
And at that time,
yeah.
they had an unemployment office in
Yes,
Hastings.
as far as I know, well, yeah, of course, I used to go there to get these jobs, and not only me, other people too, you know. And, yeah, I got this job at Wash Windows, and so this lady treated me bad that had me do her gardening for her. Well, I took my time. And so the lady gave me the chamois and got me some ammonia and hot water and all. She was real nice. And I sort of took my time. I wasn't going like I did trying to do a good job for this lady that I done a garden for. But anyway, I worked about maybe 3 days, 2 or 3 days, maybe 2.5 days probably. And when she paid me, she gave me a $5 bill. I never seen one. $5 bill, 2 singles, and some change.
Wow.
For that was more money I ever seen in my life. And I run all the way home. I mean, I run all the way home with that much money. I think my mother gave me a dime. That's what I gave.
A dime out of the...
Yeah.
Well, that's the way they did it those days.
Yeah. That wasn't bad at all.
No. You got your food and your
Well, that's right.
shelter.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I lived in a house with the Aikens, and they were on University Road, I think.
What was that name?
Aiken, Arthur M. Aiken. He was the vice president of Chase National Bank in New York City. Yeah, and his wife and her daughter. He already married a woman who had a child already. It was a girl. So they lived in this big house there. Well, when I started, I done the windows first, and then they wanted me to break their driveway because they didn't want no horse and wagon come through there and mess up their driveway. You know, had a big curvy driveway. Then we had a Buick limousine there too. Am I messing things up? Okay. I used to beat the rug. I was a chambermaid, butler, chauffeur, and everything else.
For this family?
For this
All
family,
for this
yeah.
family.
All
You
for
were
this
like
family.
a general factotum.
I was, yeah. Well, yeah, I used to have to take the rugs out and beat them, you know, back in then you
Yes.
put them on a line
Oh,
and beat
I
them.
remember doing that.
Yeah, well, I was doing that. And then I was also a butler. Like I used to cook Mr. Aiken poached egg on toast, and he had his grapefruit. And I had to go out and get the newspaper for him before he went down to the railroad station and went to New York City.
Do you know how he spelled his name?
I think it's A-I-K-E-N.
Okay.
A-I-K-E-N.
That sounds,
Yeah,
that
Aiken.
sounds.
Something like that. I'm pretty sure that was, it was Arthur M. Aiken. And I don't know what his wife's name was. But she was nice. She was all right. Big breast, and a big rump. She was she was one of the kinds. But she was great. And she taught me how to drive a car.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was a 32. It was a 32 a Buick, and it was a Buick limousine. Well, one of her friends came to the house, and she had a Chinese chauffeur and had a little Pekingese dog on a long chain, and then she had one of these big sticks with the glasses on. She
What do they call that, a lorgnette?
Okay, well, whatever. And when Miss Aiken seen that, man, she got an idea she was going to make a chauffeur out of me. She did. Oh, she loved that. And, and I come to the door with a silver platter, and she put her card on it, and I took it up to Mrs. Aiken. She looked at it, and she said, "Let her come on in." So, and she came in with this little Pekingese dog and this Chinese chauffeur she had, and they chatted and all that jive, And she got the idea about that same week. I think she took them down to Macy's in New York City.
Oh.
Bought me a chauffeur's outfit, pants, and about half a dozen shirts, neckties, had chauffeur's hat, and shoes, brand new shoes, man. So, yeah.
How old were you then?
29. 1930, well, I was born 1914, so I was about maybe 16, 17 years old. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Dave.
Page.
Yeah, Page. But put that hat over there in one of the boxes, if you don't mind, honey. Oh, man, what was I talking about? I'm getting senile, I'm only 82, or will be.
You were
Yeah.
telling about Mrs. Aiken.
Yeah,
Mrs.
oh yeah,
Aiken.
oh yeah, about her teaching me how, yeah. And she took me down Sawmill River Road. It wasn't the expressway then. It was.
The Parkway wasn't there then.
It was a better road than the roads around here in Hastings. Yeah, so she took me up and down Sawmill River Road, and Riverdale Avenue too. In Yonkers, we went into Yonkers, I think, a time or two. And so on the way back one time, about the second or third time I drove for, say, 20 or 30 minutes or whatever, and come down Broadway and turn in on Ballard Avenue, and turn in on that corner there on one wheel, the steering wheel. And she let out a war whoop you could hear on the other side of the Palisades. Oh, she grabbed me, hugged me, like, she's so scared. And the car close to the corner there, but I didn't hear it. But I got mighty close.
So how long did you work for Mrs. Aiken as
Until the banks closed in 32.
Oh.
And he was the vice president of Chase National, and he let me and the laundress go. And that
was right in the beginnings of the Depression.
Right. And I seen Franklin Delano Roosevelt come down just before, well, maybe 1930, 31 or 32, whatever it was. He was governor of the state of New York, back then. And they had these Push Crandall was one of the policemen. I think he was one of the policemen back then who drove a motorcycle. There's about 4 motorcycles come down from Dobbs Ferry and come right by where Ballard Avenue sort of comes into Broadway and Woodburton Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only maybe from here to that table from when they turned. And I seen him, but I didn't take a good look at him. I didn't know who he was. But anyway, I got to see him back in 32. And I think that was 30, it was 31 or 32. So,
What did you do after you left
Well,
the Aikens?
Yeah, well then I was caddying up in Scottsdale, Sunningdale Country Club in Scottsdale. We used to get a good amount of $1.10 a round, and used to go 2 rounds and make $2.20, $2.40, whatever. And then the CCCs started. So I went into CCCs on 20th of May, 1933. And we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then from there they shipped us out to Idaho, Weiser, Idaho, right on the Snake River. And we were building roads in the Weiser National Forest. We blowing up stumps and cutting trees down, blowing up stumps and making a road up through the forest there. From there, when the winter time was checking in, we had to board up our mess hall. We only had mess halls, and we had tents all around in that area because the snowing time back in them days seemed like they were real big and deep. So they moved us out and sent us back, load us on a train and ship us to Cold Creek, Tennessee. Cold Creek, Tennessee. This was in 33? Yeah, because we went out there about June. Of course, I got in on 20th of May, and we stayed at Camp Dix for about maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then they sent us to Weiser, Idaho, and we stayed there until the snow started moving in. So we left there around November, and we got into Cold Creek, Tennessee, and when we got out of unloading off the train, they handed us a shovel and an axe. They had a forest fire somewhere in the hills in Tennessee, and we left all our gear and all on the train, and we went on up and fighting the fire.
How long were you in the CCC?
Well, I went in 33, and 2 years, about 2 years, yeah. And then I got to be a truck master. Well, I was a canteen steward for a while, and I was in 2 different outfits, what I mean. The first time I went, then I came home.
In the CCC?
From the CCCs, yeah. And couldn't get no work here, so I went back down to Tennessee and got back in the CCCs, and then I got to be a truck master.
Was there a lot of unemployment in Hastings when you came back?
Yeah, it was. I didn't look too hard.
How were people managing? How were they managing?
Well, not too good. Yeah, times were hard. So I went back to Tennessee. Yeah, I went back to Tennessee, and I got back in the CCCs, and I pulled another tour.
How long was that?
I think it was a year. I got my discharge papers and all that, but I didn't get all that information. I should have if I thought for 1 minute you were going to do. I'd be doing something like this, why I know like it would all like jive with me. But, oh yeah.
So that took you up to what year then?
35. Then I got to be a mechanic for the U.S. Forest Service. And I was making $100 a month. They started me off with $100 a month. And I was always sending $25 to my mother. While I was in CCs, that was what you had to do. $25 came home and you got $5 a month while you were a CC boy. So I sent Mama, the government done that. They sent her 25 whether I wanted to or not. So that was okay.
I think they did that in general back in those days.
They
Even
did.
in the armed forces, didn't they do that?
No, not in the Army, but in the CCCs. They made me for a while they could have. And
that brought you up close to World War II.
Yeah, I was, well, this was 35 was last time, and I was a canteen steward and a truck master of the CC camp in Powell Station, Tennessee, which is just out of Knoxville. And they were building Norris Dam. Well, when we first come in, and we had to fight that fire in 33, in about November 33. When we went into the campsite where we stayed, we had to chop down all the trees below the water line because they were building the Norris Dam right out of Knoxville, it's Tennessee. And,
The Norris Dam is known
Norris.
by another name now, isn't it?
well, no,
Or it's still?
it's still Norris
Still
Dam,
Norris
yeah,
Dam.
yeah, right out of Knoxville. And, I was on a good route, but I forgot. Well, anyway, yeah, and then they moved us from Coal Creek because they stopped backing the water up in 1935. They stopped backing the water up for Norris Dam, and they moved us to Powell Station, and that's where I got to be a canteen steward and a truck master. And I was making $45 a month. Big wheel.
Well,
Yeah.
those days that was good.
Oh, all right, that was good. But $25 that always went home. And even I done that after I got married. I was sending Mom $25 a month. Really. Because I was making $100 a
Oh,
month.
did you get married down in Tennessee?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I married Estelle. Well, her name's in here. Yeah,
We'll
Estelle.
coordinate that with
Yeah, that's
her.
right. Yeah, just tie it in, fix it up any way you want to. But it got to be right. No.
Well, we'll type it up and.
Yeah, okay, honey, and see how it turns out. Okay, 33. Yeah, that was 35. Then I got to be, I was hired by the U.S. Forest Service as a mechanic, and I got $100 a month. Then I lived on Magnolia Avenue in New York, in Knoxville, Tennessee, because the central garage for the CCs was in Knoxville. But then the superintendent of the whole works, why, he had his family in Chattanooga, so he had the whole system moved down to Chattanooga. And that's where I married my wife in Chattanooga. We lived in Chattanooga for a number of years. My boy was born there.
Is that in here? Is that in your notes?
I don't know. But, no, I married, my wife's name's in there, but you should have read that to start off with. When this thing runs out, it's most likely...
It's still going.
Still going, okay. I've already forgot what I was doing.
Oh, yes, you have your wife's name in the picture.
Yeah, Yeah, I married her in 11th day of January 1941, and my boy was born the 30th of October 1940. I only
just
had two
before
children. Yeah, just before the war. Well, yeah, just before the war. Yeah, and then naturally, then I got into the cavalry with I'm a nasty guy.
You were in the cavalry?
Yeah, I was in the 109th Cavalry, yeah. And I got my basic training in 6th Cavalry. That's Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia.
Are you through with the tape?
I got into the 109th Cavalry, and then, but I took on basic training at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, 6th Cavalry. And that's riding horse. So when I die, I'll be one of the last mounted cavalrymen in the United States of America.
I was going to ask you that. Did you have horses?
Oh, yeah.
Because the cavalry,
we rode on a horse.
you had to take care of that horse, didn't you?
Doggone right. We had to groom him, feed him, water him, tie him to the picket line. And me being a Yankee down in the South, man, I had to do picket line duty just about every weekend and any holidays. I didn't get that in there, but that's what I had.
What's picket line duty?
The picket line duty, we had about 90 horses, and you had to tie one once you fed them and watered them, and you tie them to your picket line, and then you had to guard the horses because they get all tangled up. If they didn't, you had to unhook the lock.
Oh, yeah, they weren't in stalls. They were on a line.
Yeah, on a line, big rope. The rope was about an inch thick or thicker. And it went a long ways, maybe 150 feet or more, or longer. Well, anyway, yeah, that was a picket line. And me being a Yankee down in the South, man, I was nothing but dirt. But anyway, I didn't care. I was just jolly like anybody had common sense was due. So I went along with anything they done to me. So Yeah, I caught a lot of picket line duty, and and I had a pack horse too to take care of. And then we'd go out on a
Did you have
a
any
march.
mules?
No, we just had horses, strictly on horses. And I went on maneuvers, and my first maneuvers was in Biloxi, Mississippi, in DeSoto National Forest, and between Biloxi and Gulfport, Mississippi. That was my first maneuver with the cavalry. And the second one was in Texas and Texarkansas. Yeah, right on the line of Texas and Louisiana. That was our second maneuver, and the third maneuver was in Tennessee. So I made them three on horseback. And I used to carry the guide on too. My title was Troop Artificer. Is that right? Artificer? Yeah, I repaired all the troop weapons. All we had was a 30 caliber water-cooled machine gun, an M1 rifle, and a 45 caliber pistol. That was the three weapons we had. And the pack horses carried our machine guns with us wherever we went. And we go on marches. But anyway, when I die, I'll be one of the last mounted, you got to say mounted, cavalrymen.
Have you written that down, that you...
No, I haven't written it down, but I know that's the way it's
people would not know that.
Because I go to a cavalry reunion every year. We got one coming off in September the 27th, 28th, and 29th this year down in Orlando, or Kissimmee. Do you know where Orlando? Kissimmee is a lower end, I think, of Orlando. And I have a daughter who lives there, so we're going to have a reunion there, a cavalry reunion. And I've made them all ever since, well, I can't think way back.
I just wondered of some other interesting facts of your life that are not in this written.
Yeah, well, I don't.
Did you get to go overseas?
Oh yeah. I went to the New Guinea. Yeah, with the.
Oh
yeah. I made two campaigns, two battles in New Guinea, in Hollandia and Bayek, and then two in the Philippines, Leyte and Luzon. We were first troops in Manila, and I got wounded in Manila in 1945. And we were attached to the 1st Cavalry then, and I was sent back home, back to state. Hey, and I shook hands with Harry S. Truman. He was in San Francisco when he was making that San Francisco conference or whatever it was in 45. Yeah, it had to be 45, yeah. That's when I was wounded in April 45, right after the President
You were wounded?
died. Oh, yeah.
Where were you wounded?
The jobs were dropping. We were supposed to go up to Ipa Dam to keep the jobs from blowing up. The jobs were.
Is this in the Philippines or?
Yes, in Manila, yeah, right out of Manila. Somewhere in Manila, in the hills. And they had a dam there, and as far as I know, they called it the Ipa Dam. And I had a squad of 8 men to go on up there, try to beat the Japs out of blowing that thing up, which they never.
Wick concerning his life in Hastings and so forth. So we're continuing with this up to the point where he's about to go to Europe with the mounted infantry. What do you call it?
Cavalry.
Cavalry.
Okay. I'm all mixed up now. Is it going now?
Yes, it's going.
Let's stop it a minute.
Let's see how we. Oh, it's going. This is to continue the interview with Mike Sewick. He wanted to bring us back to the time that his brother died from hemorrhaging from having a tooth extraction. He has some interesting things to say about Mr. Zinser, but he would like to write some of this down, and we'll coordinated with this tape. Okay, Mike? About the Zinzas, how they came down to the Hastings houses, which were on Railroad
Avenue. Yeah, and that was the last houses on Railroad Avenue going toward Zinzas. And he would come down on a sled, dressed up as Santa Claus, and the first toys I ever got in my life was from Mr. Zinza.
Oh, that's
And
very interesting.
And it was. It had to be in the 26 or 27, somewhere in that year, that I,
Did any of your family work for the Zinzas?
Only work we done, we had the garden up here. My
But
daddy.
you said your mother lived in...
Yes, my daddy worked. Yeah, my daddy worked for Zinzas. Yeah, he retired from Zinzas.
Oh, there you go.
My daddy's name was Andrew.
Andrew.
They called him Andy.
Yeah.
And he also worked up in that old age home on...
Oh, well, it's now called the Andrus Retirement.
That's right. He worked there. He was a gardener there. He
Oh.
retired from there. He retired from the Anaconda, Zinzas, and that...
Oh, my, he really
He
worked.
was working. Yeah, he was getting 3 retirement checks when he died. He lived to be 88 and a half years old. He,
You said at what time, at what point was it that your mother lived in the castle?
Oh, yeah.
With
Well, see, when I was wounded, I came home and I was on crutches.
Oh,
And so he lived in the Castle Inn. That was 1946, 45, 46. I stayed in convalescent hospitals down in Daytona Beach, Florida was the first one. All along from Hamilton Airfield, I got to shake hands with Harry S. Truman.
oh.
Harry S. Baines shook hands when at the San Francisco conference he came to the Hamilton Field to visit the
You came in from the Philippines to
from the
California.
Philippines, that's right, to Hampton Field, California, to that hospital there. And President Truman was to have his speech, and they built a big platform. We come in late at night, and we heard all this nailing and all that stuff. They built a platform for Harry S. Truman to make a speech or something like that. When he came, there was 3 of us sitting behind.
Were you in a wheelchair or on crutches?
No, on crutches. Yeah, I had a big cast on my leg, and I had a couple crutches. But anyway, we were behind the hedges as Harry Truman, instead of going to the platform over there, he wanted to see the boys, and we were all around the entrance of the hospital.
Wasn't he in the cavalry? Wasn't he in the...
He was a captain in World War II. Yeah. And instead of him going up on the platform making a speech or whatever, and all these newsmen, all around, they were traveling, and the post commander of that hospital there, he and Harry S. Truman coming up this walkway, and we were right behind. We were right on just about on the. I was the 3rd man over, and then there's a couple other fellas. I didn't even know them because we just flew in that night, So Harry S. Truman reached over and shook our hands, and where was you wanted, or how were you wanted, and all that stuff, And I got a big write-up about it. It's from the Frisco Chronicle, and one of the...
In Hastings? One of the Hastings?
No, it wasn't Hastings.
California?
It was California. San Francisco Chronicle, I think, or whatever paper that was. Yeah, I got the copy of it. Maybe I ought to bring that up here.
Well, you could make a copy of it, or we could make a copy of it.
Okay, well, I can make a copy of it, too. Well, what about that? Well, anyway... Yeah, and...
you got home, and your mother lived in the castle?
Oh, yeah. Well, this was 45 when I come back from... right after President Roosevelt died. See, he died in April, too, I think, and I got wounded the 25th of April, 1945, and stayed in the hospitals for 14 months.
Oh, my.
Yeah, well, that's the way it was back in them days.
Yeah.
Anyway, But anyway, that was an honor and a pleasure for me to shake
Yes,
hands
that
with
was,
Harry Estro.
Yeah, he really proved himself, didn't he?
He sure did. He's a great man. Well, I was really tickled to death about that. And so one of the newsmen said, sort of like, because I hopped over to a telephone. They had about 20 or 30 telephone booths, you know, for all these newsmen. They called back to their newspapers to give them the whatever they know. Yeah, he asked me how I got wounded, and I told him I think I told him first by I got shrapnel from a mortar, Japanese mortar, from mortar fragment. But anyway, I told him something like that. But that's what happened. The Japs were dropping these mortar shells on us. We were trying to get up to Eva Dam to keep the Japs from blowing the dam up. But I never made it. They were dropping these mortar shells in on us, and I got hit. So that's what happened. Well, it was mortar shells that stopped me. But anyway, then they flew me from there to Welch Convalescent Hospital in Daytona Beach, Florida, and that's where I was. And during that time is when I came home on R&R, sort of, and Mama lived in the castle. Mama lived in the castle. My daddy was there, and I'm trying to think. Well, anyway.
You were telling us about the Ukrainian school.
Oh, yes. Ukrainian
You said it was in the castle.
In the back, in the back part of it, from back, the one naturally, it sort of faced Warburton Avenue. But the back part of it was a big porch, and in the center of that porch was doorways going into, and they had a screw-up stairway, sort of a thing like
Spiral
that. Spiral stairway, and and we our teachers used to have us sit on little chairs like this all around in the bottom part of the whatever you want to call it.
Porch.
No, it wasn't a porch. We were inside the building. Yeah, we were inside the building, and he was teaching us how to speak Ukrainian and all that jazz. And that school was going on about 20. I'm going to say maybe 27, 28, somewhere in there. And our teacher threw us out because we were eating too much garlic. So, because we stunk the place up and he didn't want no more of that. Well, anyway, that was in the late 20s. Because we lived there from then till Mama still lived in 46. Because I come back when I got out of the hospital in 40. Well, I was in the hospital 14 months. I was wounded April 26, 1955, 45. And then I got out in June the 6th, 1946. And then I would come home anyway, off and on. So during that period, Mama was living in that castle. And we have some pictures of made at the castle there.
Oh, that'll be interesting. If you have you could make copies, or we could make copies of those.
Okay, well, I'll try to do that then.
You didn't stay in Hastings after.
No, I always went back because I was married.
You got married down in Tennessee?
In Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, And we lived right in Chattanooga. I bought my first home there in Chattanooga. And then we moved down to the Atlanta area because I was still in the Army and I was assigned at Fort McPherson in Atlanta. So, and I stayed on in until I retired in 68. I went in 38, 14th day of January 1938, and I retired August the 17th, 1968.
Oh, you stayed in?
I only stayed in 30 years, 7 months, 3 days. Yeah, I come out as a master sergeant. So, yeah, I liked it. It was all right. Once you got to be a first three grade, things weren't bad. But,
Well.
and this is my old cavalry ring. This is my wife's wedding band. This is all I could afford back then. I paid $1.40 for that.
Well, that's interesting.
And I had to cut it and make it so she could play. This is her wedding band, but it's my old cavalry crest on it.
Well, I thank you very much, Mr. Sewick.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to having your written
Okay, yeah.
follow-up on this interview. Thank you very much.